Understand the next schools are split. Call 5 minutes. Catherine Delahunty.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou te whare. I'd like to follow on the previous speaker who evoked a Dickensian universe, which was somehow suitable given what the government budget does to beneficiary families by ignoring their needs. So now is the winter of our discontent. The budget has not relieved it for many people. It was, as I think one educator described it, as underwhelming, and I think that's quite a good description, but we can be grateful we're not in Australia under Tony Abbott. In the last couple of weeks, I have been visiting many schools and communities in between listening to submissions on the Educans bill, and that's a bizarre experience on its own, because that bill is about a professional body creating a professional body without involving actual professionals on it when it's about them. But I have been asking teachers and principals and parents their views from Invercargill to Whangarei about the money that's been confirmed in the budget. It wasn't news. We knew that there was going to be $359 million spent on the executive principals and expert teachers, etc., and asking them what they feel about it, because what was interesting was that nobody was opposed to professional pathways for teachers, improving schools and collaboration. Not at all. They had very nuanced ideas, but all of them were dubious about the idea of a principal spending 2 days a week in 10 different schools instead of their own school, because I think principals, especially in the mainly Decile 1 schools that I visited, realised that the school is very dependent on their leadership, and it's important that they are there. They're not against valuing and enhancing the profession, but interestingly, virtually everybody said if we're going to spend $359 million, the top priority is dealing with inequality. I guess that would be no surprise in a Decile 1 school, that their top priority is the fact that their children are coming to school sometimes without food, with inadequate clothing, and with transients from school to school being a major issue. I talked to 2 principals who said that children are bouncing back between their 2 schools as their parents lose housing, and this is in a supposedly wealthy city of Tauranga. And so what these principals told me was, we're all for improving the education system, but let's make it equitable so that we can improve it. Without equity, we have no improvement. And so what they talked about was, if you're going to spend a large sum of money, we'd love to see school support staff paid a living wage from a centralised fund rather than our desperately stressed operations grants. And yes, we're grateful that the operations grant had a small amount put into it, which will just keep up with inflation. But actually, it'll just keep up. But we would rather see school support staff properly paid a living wage, and more of them, because then all children and all parents and all teachers will actually be able to work together improving learning. Because school support staff don't only support vulnerable children with learning disabilities, they also support teachers by allowing them to then focus on other children. So there's a real logic to what these principals and teachers were saying about the necessity for putting money in the issues of equity first. And they were not at all negative about the idea of collaboration. They want to collaborate, but they're collaborating right now around addressing extreme poverty in some of their communities. And many of these Decile 1 schools, fantastic schools, like so impressed with these schools, especially their commitment to Te Reo Māori, their commitment to culture. But the struggle that they have is that some schools, virtually every single child is a special needs child, because they don't have enough food on the table and they don't have enough money in the home to be able to participate fully in school life. And that's an indictment on any government. It's an indictment on all of us. So what I'd like to talk about is the Greens. Good idea. Our good idea is, let's focus instead with that money, $100 million, which is a lot less than 359 or $800 million, on making schools the hub of our communities, on giving a school lunch to all the children in the Decile 1 to School 4 schools, and making sure that they can have Oscar and after-school holiday programs for free, and having a schools coordinator to coordinate programs that will engage parents with the school and help the school meet the parents' needs for services, and actually building a positive model based on schools like Victory and other schools which have succeeded in changing the conditions for their students, not through some expert external process, but through an internal community building process. That's the positive solution. That's where the money should go. Kia ora tātou.
Mr Speaker.
I call Kevin Haig.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I want to begin